Hi, everybody. My name is Lessa Lamb, and I'm hosting the Pillow Talk Summit. I have with me today Veronica Monet, and she is going to tell her about herself.
Hi, I am Veronica Monet. It's nice to be with you, Lessa. Really glad to be part of your Pillow Talk. A little bit about me. Well, let's see. I authored a book called Sex Secrets of Escorts, which came out through Penguin, a major publisher, back before everybody was self-publishing. And it's kind of out of print. So if your listeners, your viewers actually want to get a copy, they should contact me. They can just go over and click my contact on theshamefreezone.com.
Sure.
But more current is the free book that I offer, which is How to Stop Fighting and Love Your Relationship More Than Ever. And that can also be obtained over on theshamefreezone.com, which is where you can find out more about me. In a nutshell, I've been in the media for 20 years, everything from CNN to Fox News. And I've been really out as a political activist for sexual rights and sexual freedoms. And I've spent the last 10 years being a relationship coach. So
Wonderful.
I'm kind of rebranded myself as a certified sexologist and a certified management specialist. And I conduct something called dynamic role plays for the couples that I work with.
Well, that sounds exciting. I hope to get into that a little bit later. Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Definitely.
There's nothing lightweight about the work that I do. It's very, very heavy.
No, for sure. It sounds like it's very intricate and intense, maybe sometimes too.
It's transformative. People come to see me really, really want positive change. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's what a lot of people are coming on the summit to look for too: positive change in their intimacy. So, so the three main questions that I had for you today are. I'm just going to sort of list them out, and then we'll sort of address them topic by topic. The first one is, why don't people talk about sex more often? What do you see that keeps people from having that conversation out loud? And then the second one is, what would make sex more often, if more often, possibly more often, or more awesome, either one, if we did talk about it more often?
More awesome.
Yes, often sometimes equates to more awesome too. And then the third one is, is there anything in particular that you think that facilitates that conversation, the ease of that conversation, or helping people talk about that? So let's start out with, why don't you think people talk about sex more often?
You know, they're all three great questions. It's a fabulous topic, and it's actually just really up for almost all of the people that I see. I'm often just astounded. People can be married for 20 years. They're talking about their money, talking about their kids, talking about their spiritual path, talking about everything but what happens when they are supposedly the closest ever and, like naked with each other.
Yeah.
But there's a level of vulnerability in the physical nakedness that I think sometimes causes people to be really shy about emotional nakedness. So I think people are always looking for a little protection, a little something that makes them feel safer. And if they are completely physically naked, there's a lot of vulnerability there. Mm-hmm. And then most importantly, we have a shame-based culture. So people are very shame-based around sex, even really progressive, liberal people who think of themselves as really being open-minded about sex. Can still get caught up into some old habits. It's like nobody's modeled the conversation. In the culture, when I say that we're sexually shameful, people are like, well, yeah, but what about online porn, and what about all the sexually explicit images and half-naked people on MTV, whatever.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. There's the sex, quote-unquote sex that we have in our culture, I think is kind of actually a lot of showboating. I don't really see that it's sex. It doesn't look like anything that I associate with sex. Sometimes it actually looks more like violence to me.
I agree.
So when people are wanting to make love, how do they even talk about it? No, they've never seen anybody do it, never heard anybody do it, never read a good conversation about it. So it's really just kind of like a foreign language. And then, of course, there's fear. People are so afraid.
Yeah.
Of what they
I
look
so
like.
agree.
Yeah, they're afraid of what they look like. They're afraid of their bodies, afraid of their quote-unquote sexual performance. Men especially are really afraid of that. People are trying to emulate something they saw in a romantic movie, something they read in a bodice ripper, or something that they watched in a pornography film.
Absolutely.
And they're busy trying to pretend to be people that they're not, and they don't even think they've got permission to laugh and just be human, be human. So what would it look like if people could talk about sex? Well, one of the things that would really happen is that the 80% of women who fake orgasms would stop.
Oh man, that's such a tragic statistic.
It's just terrible but true. So that would stop. Fake orgasms would stop, which would mean that men would stop doing things that don't work for women, and women would stop enduring things that don't work for them. And people would communicate like, ow, or no, thank you. I don't like to have anal sex. That's a one that a lot of people don't feel afraid to talk about. Or I do want to have anal sex.
Yeah.
And how should we do that safely? How should we do that so that it was pleasurable?
Yeah.
For all concerned. But now what we have is people a lot of times getting drunk or otherwise inebriated so that they can kind of let go.
Yeah.
And it's sad to me because if you could talk about sex in a way that's shame-free and open and vulnerable, you would have the kind of sexual highs that you're never going to get when you are drunk or stoned or shut down or in denial or trying to fake an orgasm. So there's a way in which people are not raising their oxytocin levels. They're not actually getting to experience those authentic orgasms and all the spiritual highs that go with that.
Yeah.
How could they engage that conversation? To engage that conversation, the first thing you really have to do is take a look at the things you're afraid of.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. What am I afraid of? Am I afraid that I'll look silly or stupid? Or I think what comes up for women sometimes is too slutty. Maybe I will seem like I want sex more than I should. There's some men who feel that way too. Men who don't want to appear to be pushy or like they're objectifying the woman in their life because they really love her, and yet they've got these desires. And well, how do I express that without making her feel somehow or another degraded?
Sure, objectified. Yeah.
Yeah, so fears. What am I afraid of? And then the next thing would be, what are my expectations?
Oh, yeah. That's a really good one.
If I have expectations when I go into this conversation, it's going to feel like I do.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to let go of those expectations so that my partner or potential partner doesn't feel put upon or blamed or cornered or pressured. What you want is a value-free, judgment-free, shame-free zone. Yeah. But you come into this as two people who are just being really human. And you almost have to conceptualize sex as being something neutral. Like, what's your favorite color? What kind of music do you like? Do you like strawberries or do you prefer blackberries? If we were able to talk about sex that way, we take the judgments off it, and then it just becomes a fact. It's like, well, I like cake. Well, I don't. I like vanilla. Okay, no harm, no foul. We just like different things.
Right.
Unfortunately, people don't have these discussions before they get into a relationship. They get into a relationship, and they get invested in what their partner's going to say.
Yes.
And they don't want their partner to say that they like things that they don't like. So it's kind of like, well, don't say that. You say, well,
no, that could be, yeah.
Our children will happen to our home.
Yeah.
So,
there's that fear question again.
Yeah, and I get to work with that kind of fallout, people who've already really kind of merged their lives, but their sex lives are maybe incompatible. And there's still hope for that. There's still a way to work through that, depending on what you consider a good outcome. Sometimes I believe you're just going to have to outsource. I don't ever want to see anybody pressured to engage in behaviors that they're not interested in. And at the same time, I mean, some people are just wired the way they're wired and they can't help it.
Yeah.
But bottom line that I have found, if two people are really in love with each other, it's the connection and the sense of merging that really appeals to them most of all about the sex. And they want the sex to be hot. They want it to be seductive. They want it to be what I call monkey sex. But
Yeah, it's really true.
yeah, but they, what really needs to be there is the sense that we're in love, we're passionate about each other, we're really attracted to each other. And if that is the main goal, if that's the main objective, it's not really that difficult to make some divergent interests come a little closer to each other. People are sometimes willing to give up a particular kink in order to have the love of their life. So anyway, I know I kind of went off there on a tangent. I don't know.
No, it's great. It's great. I love it.
Oh, there's some tools I'd like to introduce. Would you like to hear about some tools about having that conversation?
Yes. I would absolutely love to hear about that. Yes, please.
Okay, so one of the things, let's say you get ready, you've been in a relationship for 10 years, things are not going in the direction that you want them to, sexually. Everything else in the relationship is great.
Just an interjection right quick. How often do you see that? Is that like the majority of the people who come to you, they've been in a relationship for a long time and they just feel stagnated?
Wow, 80%.
Wait, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally right. Yeah, I feel like it's important to connect with it. They're not alone.
No,
Yeah.
not. Say like maybe 20% of my clients are really having a relationship crisis, and that might be around addiction, anger management, even monetary disagreements.
Yeah.
And you got to keep in mind, I'm a certified sexologist, so I am seeing people who have problems with sex. And I'm a certified anger management specialist, so I see people who are angry.
Yeah, totally.
I don't think it's that much of an extrapolation to see problems in the population at large. That people tend to suppress their anger and not talk about sex. That's just what they do.
Yeah.
So if you're going to approach your partner about a conversation about sex, the first thing you really need to rule out is that you don't have other issues.
Interesting.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't make any sense to talk about what you want to do to spice up your love life if what's really going on is you guys have kind of put a whole bunch of confrontations on the back burner and refuse to deal with them. So there's going to be this way in which you might make agreements. Oh, sure, we're going to do this, and it's going to be really hot, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen because you've got this backlog of resentment and anger that's still sitting in the pit of your gut.
Yeah.
Or fear that your partner's cheating on you or lying to you or not going to be there for you tomorrow or whatever the concerns are in the relationship. Mm-hmm. So those really need to be addressed first. And I don't think if you're in a long-term relationship especially, that means you've got entrenched patterns.
Yeah.
You've got communication that's not working. If there's problems in the relationship and you've been together for a long time, you've got some patterns of avoidance and probably passive-aggressive stuff. This is what I see a lot. People have got these ways of kind of sticking the knife in. It's like, I love you, and by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's healthy.
Well, it does not usually help people make love. Some people thrive off of that. They kind of like the whole cat fight thing. Yeah. But for most people, it just won't open up to intimacy. They're going to start to kind of back away from each other. So, but let's say that everything else is great. Let's say you don't fight. I work with couples that don't have any interpersonal issues at all, and it's just the sex life. Mm-hmm. And that's rare. I want to say it's very rare, but it does happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we're usually talking about potential sexual trauma. And also possibly religious upbringing or some other really heavy-handed moral approach towards sex.
Yeah.
So you want to, first of all, look at potential trauma. And that can be a little bit hard to sleuth out because sometimes we're in denial about that. They think they've had a great childhood. But see signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, things where people are kind of forgetful or they just kind of get triggered by a certain touch or a certain word and they fly off the handle. That's a good sign that you might be working around some kind of trauma. And if triggers are sexual, it's probably sexual trauma.
Highly likely. But even non-sexual trauma from a past experience, even from childhood or past lovers, those can still be present and still be having an effect on the relationship and the sexuality, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Any kind of trauma can have an effect on the relationship in general. And the sex life doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's
right. Precisely. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you think your partner has some kind of trauma, then, you want to approach that as a conversation that's all about empathy, compassion and empathy. And really, every conversation that has potential problems in it should be empathetically and compassionately framed.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? You really want to rely on I feel statements, for one. A lot of communication techniques, which a lot of times come out of Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, where you're kind of reflecting back to people, it sounds like you're angry or you seem afraid. Are you? Did you want to share more with me about how that feels? I feel statements are really great because almost any sentence that starts with the word you puts people's nerves on edge.
Absolutely.
And you could be getting ready to say something like, you are fantastic. But that beautiful complimentary adverb, what people hear is you, and they kind of freeze and go, what did I do now?
Oh no, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, what about me? So better to say I feel is great, because if I say I believe or I've noticed that you, I just delayed that horrible gut punch. Now we're still getting to kind of a feeling of being accused. So people really, almost everybody I talk to thinks they understand the I feel statement format, and almost everybody that I work with doesn't know how to do it. So it'll look like something like, well, I feel like you weren't paying attention to me, or I feel like you're not attracted to me anymore, or I feel like we're miles apart. Okay, now that last one's not quite as bad. The first two are terrible. There's still an accusation in there, and the person is going to feel defensive. What do you mean? I feel fine. I don't think there's any problem. That's usually where people go. So something like, I really miss you. I miss us. I'm wondering what we can do about this. I'm wondering if you miss us too. So this requires some curiosity. Yeah. And you have to get past your hurt and your fear to this place where you can actually trust that person is your friend. And if you approach them as your friend and your partner, there's a really good chance you guys are going to be able to solve the situation together. If instead you're thinking, I have to solve it, and this other partner's resistant, they probably will be. They probably will be resistant.
Not so much, yeah, definitely. So that's giving us a really great base for, like, where do we start from in our relationships, and what is it that we're dealing with in our conversations around sexuality, and sort of the extrapolation that I have from that is what we're dealing with in conversations around our sexuality isn't our partner, it's ourselves.
Yeah. Oh my God. Most of the work that I do with couples, I actually have them doing individual sessions.
Yeah.
So that's their couples work. And then once a month we come together for the joint sessions. And in those, we do those dynamic role plays where they are up on their feet and they are doing a role play about some argument they had that week. and we're getting to go into it just exactly where they left off. So it's raw and it's juicy and it's scary as hell.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying, sure.
It is terrifying.
Yeah,
But
and useful.
plus, I'm meeting with them individually. I know how each of them feels in their inner children. So this would be another thing that's really, really important. You're not actually talking to an adult. If you're talking to your partner, you're talking to a 4-year-old. You are everything to them. Their mother, their father, their last hope, the person that they hope they will grow old with. And if you're not in a long-term committed relationship, okay, that may not be an overt wish, but I guarantee you there's going to be some projection in that direction anyway. It's just what people do.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. So knowing that you're, anybody who's going to drop their pants is going to let you see their little kid.
Yeah.
And that little kid is not highly evolved, is not going to bring all of their adult skill sets. They've got all these insecurities and foibles, and you want to treat those as tenderly as possible, because it's a really sacred privilege to be able to see those parts of people.
Yeah, that's beautiful, the way that you stated that. Yeah.
So you want to help you, and take turns with this. So, if you're being a 4-year-old, your partner needs to show up and help, soothe, comfort, nurture that little kid. And then you switch roles. Because your partner is probably going to flip at some point and go into that little child place too. And I know this is a kind of hard conversation for people to have, because there's so many assumptions that sex is what we do at puberty and on. But that's actually not true. We now have documentation that fetuses are masturbating in the womb.
Wow, really? I haven't heard about that. That's fascinating.
Yeah. They're not only masturbating, they're masturbating to the point of orgasm.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There was this one little female baby who was still in her mommy, who masturbated by putting her hand between her legs, rubbing furiously. Her whole body shuddered, and then she took a nap.
There you go. That sounds like pattern for just about everybody I think I know that has told me about their sex lives.
So if that's true, and we don't have proof that it's true for all of us. We don't know that every single one of us masturbated in utero. But we do know some are. And if some are, it could be a lot, it could be a little. We don't know that yet. I think it's an interesting question to entertain. But what it really brings us to is how innocent sexuality is and how core it is. It's possibly the first thing you did before you ever had a breath of air, before you ever had a sip of mother's milk. You had an orgasm.
Wow.
And you were not looking at pornography. You were not falling in love with another person. You were not worrying about whether or not you looked funny.
No, you sure weren't.
There was something about that was just basic. And I firmly believe that when we go to make love to our beloveds, we're getting to encounter that person too. Now, sure, they've got all the other things that have come since then. But if you know that that's at the core, I think there's something that's incredibly beautiful and innocent about that.
Yeah. I think that's incredibly beautiful. I had no idea that those kinds of studies were coming out. I hadn't heard about that yet. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is profound.
Yeah, you can see if your viewers want to check this out, you should go Google Mary Roach TED Talk.
Okay.
10 Things About Orgasm.
10 Things About Orgasm.
Yes.
Got
it. It's about a 12-minute long TED Talk. It's one of the most popular ones on the internet.
Yeah, that's surprising.
And it'll cover a lot of ground, but it actually shows an ultrasound of this one little baby masturbating.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
It is cute.
That's oh, it's so adorable. Look at the little baby orgasm. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great though. I mean, I really love what you're saying about the innocence of sexuality and the consideration that it is a basic human need. That is
Yeah.
true.
Yes.
Absolutely. Food, clothing, shelter, sex.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is. And it's not just about procreation, and it's not even just about pair bonding.
No.
I really think that our sexuality defines our relationship with our spirituality.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. Yes. Yeah, we have a couple of people speaking on Tantra as well on this summit, so that's definitely gonna be called in for sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah. What a wonderful concept though. That's just
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Can I tell you? I actually teach sexuality,
Mhm.
and um, I I think that if you really follow that path, at some point, a couple of things are going to happen. One, you're going to get a sense of what the ancients called the doorway to the divine,
Oh
which
wow.
means that you're actually going to peer onto the other side of this plane, possibly where you came from and where you're going after you die.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
And and if you really are in this ascended, merged place, you may very well have a sense that there's more than just you and your beloved there. There may also be the presence of the divine there.
Yeah. I hope so.
Well,
Very much.
it's been my experience,
Yeah.
and and that's what I like to share with my clients when they're
That's
ready.
wonderful.
Not
Yeah.
everybody's ready for that. I did a fire breath orgasm class 20 years ago, and a fire breath orgasm class is completely clothed. You do not touch your genitals. Nobody else touches your genitals. You're laying on the floor with a room full of other people that are laying on the floor, and you're practicing conscious breathing exercises
Mhm.
and tilting your pelvis and contracting your pubococcygeal muscles, the PC muscles.
Sure.
And after 20 minutes, most people achieve a fire breath orgasm. So, and especially when they're in a room, this is when that Kundalini energy is raised by a group of people.
Very much.
I was really skeptical when I did this class.
Uh-huh.
I thought this was, and I saw people were having their little fire breath orgasms. I thought it's mass hysteria. This is nonsense. Out of here. And
Yeah.
I'm still doing the exercise because I'm a really good student and I'm obedient.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but I'm looking around the room, kind of going, "Oh, there's my handbag and my jacket. I'm leaving." And I had an orgasm instead,
I think that's great.
and it was different than any orgasm I've ever had.
Uh-huh.
It didn't have anything to do with my genitals at all.
Yeah.
It started at the base of my spine and it shot out the top of my head.
Mhm.
And I literally felt like I left my body and went up into the stratosphere and like had a conversation with God or something.
Wow.
And I want to tell you something, Lessa,
Mhm.
that was not something I was ready for. It scared the heck out of me.
I believe it.
I stayed as far away from energy play as I possibly could for about 15 minutes.
Wow. Oh no.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it's potent stuff. It's real,
Mhm.
but it's also you have to be ready. I'm
Getting
back on.
that kind of wake up. Yeah.
Happy to be.
Yeah. Totally. Wow. That is a really profound kind of way to wake up in a totally new place and go, oh no, oh my gosh, what am I touching here? Like what's going on in this space where I'm just suddenly a totally different person and I've had this experience. What does that mean? And then you just want to hide for a while, for sure.
Right? Sounds like you've had something like that yourself.
Indeed. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, there's been some pretty profound experiences in my life around my sexuality and around other things. I've done a lot of work around spirituality and spiritualism too. So, yeah. And I think those kinds of stories are so profound and inspiring. You know, that we all want to touch that place spiritually. And I talk about touching a lot and people think of like the physical construct of touching, but I don't mean physiologically necessarily with that. I'm sure you have the
Oh,
same concept for sure.
Oh, yes, I do. And I even, if you really get into this energy play, it's an
Hmm.
amazing thing. I did a tantric exercise at the first conference of Association for Sexual Energy Professionals, ASEP.
Ooh, yeah,
And that was in, I think we had it in Phoenix, Arizona. It was about 10
yeah.
years back. But we were, again, in a big room, a bunch of people raising the Kundalini energy, and
Hmm.
we were doing conscious breathing exercises, and we were supposed to be circulating the energy from our heart chakra to our solar plexus.
Hmm.
The person sitting in front of us is like 3 feet away in a chair, so we're not touching at all. Everybody's fully clothed, but my partner and I were just circulating energy, heart chakra, solar plexus, heart chakra, solar plexus, heart chakra,
Sure.
solar plexus. Well, I kept getting a persistent feeling that there was energy going into my vulva,
Uh-huh.
and I did not like it.
Hmm.
That was not the exercise.
Right.
So after the exercise, I looked at my partner and I said, "Where were you directing that energy?" And he looked down at the floor, really embarrassed, and said, "Genitals."
Oh no.
And I thought, oh my God, this brings up like a whole nother area of consent issues,
Right, right.
right?
Energetic consent. Like, how do you say yes or no to that? Like,
I
wow.
know.
Oh no. That's so funny.
I think one of the things that makes it scary to open some of these doors is people don't know, well, how will I know what sex is and what sex isn't? And
Right.
that is often a question I ask people, what is sex? They almost always define sex by however they do it,
Mm.
which is not the definition.
No, I agree. I think that's an incredibly important conversation of defining sex. Like how you define sex can definitely define all sorts of things in your life, all sorts of concepts and inner conversations about that. I think that's fascinating too.
My definition of sex is that it's the creative life force.
Mm.
And it expresses in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
In the flowers, the
Mhm.
bird song,
Mm.
an artist's painting, an author's book, a baby,
Yeah.
pair bonding, an orgasm. There's just a lot of ways that sex can express itself.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
we're here, you and I are here, we're an expression of sex because somebody had sex to make us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that can get into all sorts of stuff. So, just briefly, I wanted to touch on a few things that we had sort of overviewed over the conversation, and that's you had spoken a little bit to um, the tools that you think are really powerful in bringing conversation around, and you talked a little bit about how people can enter that conversation and how you have to come into that with a clean space and using I feel statements, and those are really excellent. You mentioned when I was speaking to you before that you have a certain formula. Would you like to talk about that briefly?
I do. I call it assert, redirect, and invite. Anger management tool and assertion tool. And most people are taught to assert by learning how to be firm with their no. And
Mm.
what I'm teaching my clients to do is to have a no that invites your partnership instead of shutting it down.
Yes.
So if your partner were to say, I wanted to do something sexually, and you thought, that is so repulsive, I don't have any interest in ever doing that,
Hmm.
you could just say, no, that will never happen.
Right. Right. Just
Which just
nope.
creates a barrier between the two of you and it shames your partner. Or you
Yes,
can
I
say
agree.
something such as, first of all, I want to thank you for how much interest you have in being sexual with me. That
Yeah.
really means the world to me.
Yeah.
And you are the person on this planet I want most to be sexual with too. Okay, so my assertion is coming right on the heels of this.
Mhm.
And my assertion is that particular behavior that you just suggested is so far out of my box. I have no bandwidth for entertaining it.
Mhm.
It's not something that I can envision myself ever wanting to do. However,
However,
however, and this is where I'm doing a redirect.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't ever just say no. You want to say no and. My and is, here's what I would like to do. Or I'd like to know if this thing, okay, it's not the same thing you're asking for, but it reminds me of it, or it seems similar, or something I've been wanting to do that I was afraid to ask you, and now seems like the perfect time to ask you. What about this? What if we did this instead? So I'm redirecting the conversation to something else, and then I am inviting the partnership. If that doesn't appeal to you, do you think there's something the two of us could come up with together?
I like that. I really like that. Definitely.
So
It sounds very generative.
It is. It's
Yeah.
it's positive. I've got okay. It looks like there's a potential conflict. It looks like there's a potential problem. I refuse to believe that.
Yeah. It's not a problem. It's just an opportunity for us to problem solve.
I'm so glad my partner's talking to me about this.
Yeah.
Thing. You could say, wow, that took a lot of courage for you to bring that to me. Thank you so much for being honest. That's exactly the kind of person I want to be with.
Yeah. I'm really resonating with this right now because of relationship history, my personal relationship history, and knowing that this is the kind of way that I want to be in relationships, and looking back on all the instances in my life where I know I shut down communication. And I feel shame about that because I don't want to bring that to my love life, but I know that it's not always easy. You know, even if you have a lot of skills around communication, it's still not easy to just kind of give yourself that self-empathy and self-forgiveness and say, okay, I maybe didn't serve my value system very well there, but what can I do going forward into my partnership and my relationship to change my patterns in the future?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and frankly, that's a conversation you can take to your partner too, is just say, just exactly what you said. I'm not real happy with the way I've been communicating, but I want to try something new. Want to play?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about the things that we've been talking about. There was another component of it that we had been discussing before, that about passion waning over time,
Oh,
and a
yeah.
component of rebuilding that, rekindling that, and that was something that I really connected with you in our sort of preliminary interview, and I wanted you to address that briefly. Would you speak to that for a moment?
Absolutely. I'd say the bulk of the people that I work with are suffering that on some level. They fell in love. They had passionate, hot sex in the beginning.
Yeah.
There's like this 2-year window, and popular thinking. Actually, it's the popular professional thinking on this topic that says, okay, you've got 2 years. You're going to have these heroin-like cocktail of hormones coursing through your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
And oxytocin and everything, making you basically crazy so that you don't see what an idiot you fell in love with. And I think that's such a negative view.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Sad. And so many people are walking around going, hey, well, we had our 2 years and we're done. Now our relationship is maturing. And I'm like, God help me if my relationship ever matures.
Yes, totally.
I am so not interested in that reality. Just not interested in it.
Yeah.
And I have for the last 20 years, really, been on a path of sexual rejuvenation and rebirth. So I actually did this with my ex-husband. Now, we since divorced, we had other issues that made us incompatible. It wasn't really the sexual issues until after the divorce. Then at some point, the sex we became incompatible there too. But that's because our life paths have become so divergent, we weren't really able to communicate anymore. But even when we were going through a lot of problems, and we were together for 15 years, we had tremendous problems, obviously, or we wouldn't have gotten divorced. But the sex life, and in particular my attraction for my partner, continued to become more and more accentuated over time. So just before we got the divorce, as a matter of fact, we went to a friend's wedding and got accused of being newlyweds. So I know for a fact that this works with more than just the person that I'm with now. And the person that I'm with now, I've been with for 5 years, and I'm having the best sex life I've ever had in my entire life.
Wonderful.
And the things that my body is, now, a lot of people would say, well, it's that energy that I'm playing with. That's true. I'm playing with a lot of energy. But what's interesting to me is that when I'm playing with that energy and I'm working on all the different levels, spiritually and psychologically and emotionally, my body is actually capable of doing things my 20-year-old body couldn't do. So that's fascinating for me. And I'm postmenopausal. That's not supposed to happen.
No, this is the rumor that you hear, that postmenopausal women aren't supposed to be interested in sex.
Oh, not only do I have a lot of interest, but I have a lot of ability. So,
there you go.
If your viewers are interested, they can email me and I'll tell them. I don't know how explicit I should get on this.
Sure. Yeah. I'm fine with whatever, actually. I think our viewers are coming here for some pretty straightforward talk, so go for it.
Okay, well, let's just talk for a minute about, because long-term relationships, when women go into menopause, this actually becomes a pertinent issue for them, and that would be about lubrication.
Absolutely.
And what I have found is that there's a beautiful place in the vulva called the Gspot. That stands for anterior fornix erogenous zone. It's up by the tip of the cervix, on the anterior wall of the vagina. So if you were going up towards the Gspot, you just keep going until you hit the tip of the cervix.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then that part right there is a very, very sensitive, delicate piece of anatomy that is tied directly into your emotions. Sometimes what happens is that over time, women have had sexual trauma, they've had other trauma, they might have had birth trauma, who knows? But that area, it needs to grieve, it needs to heal. You can actually go up and stimulate that area very gently and evoke more lubrication and kind of a rebirthing of the vulva. And some women who have been anorgasmic, meaning they haven't been able to achieve orgasm, have been able to do it by stimulating the Gspot.
Huh. Fascinating.
Yes.
That's so exciting. I'll have to do some more research on that. That sounds really interesting. I'll have to, go to your website and see what more.
Or email too. This is something I teach in my classes. You're not going to find a lot about it online. You will find a little, but I have to say, I deliver cutting edge stuff.
It's unique. Absolutely. I mean, this is why you specialize, right? This is why people want to contact you. This is fascinating. I'm very intrigued by this. I think this is really, really useful, especially for our older listeners and viewers that are saying, oh, well, this is just a fact. Well, maybe it turns out it's not.
No, it's not. The other thing too, and I'm not a nutritionist, but diet is so important, and so is exercise.
Yeah.
So if you are not fit and you're, let's say you're obese, you're going to produce more estrogen. And estrogen tamps down the testosterone, and both men and women their libido is activated by testosterone.
True.
So to be able to not have to actually be obese is an important precursor to having a great sex life. You also don't want to have clogged arteries. So if you have cholesterol issues or fatty deposits in your arteries, then the first place that's going to affect you is in your sexual organs. For women, that would be the clitoris. For men, that's going to be the penis. Sure. And those veins are smaller than the ones going to your heart. So before your doctor says you've got problems, your genitals will tell you that you've got problems.
Super important. Yeah.
That's very important. But let's talk about relationship issues, because
absolutely.
That's what I specialize in. And when I'm working with my clients, I want them to get angry. When I work with people who say, hey, our sex life has died, but we never fight, I go, well, there's your problem. So, and I don't want them to have a yelling match with each other. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm wanting is for them to find where they're angry and resentful and learn how to process those feelings to a place where they can have a constructive conversation about it with their partner. So, and that comes under the auspices of anger management. If you don't have anger management skills, then you don't want to have your anger, because you're going to act out and do things you'll regret. and do things that could destroy the relationship. But if you learn how to manage your anger in a way that lets you be dynamically engaged with it and using it like the wind in your sail to help propel you into positive action, then it's a beautiful thing. And it's a wonderful emotion. It's really your friend because it just lets you know there's something that's not working. So I just look at my anger as, oh, I need to address that, not I need to go yell at my partner.
Right.
Yeah. Most of the people who are in long-term relationships have a backlog of stuff they've been stuffing. It's like, well, it wasn't worth fighting about. Or we tried to talk about it, but the conversation didn't go anywhere. And that's not good enough. It's just not good enough if you want to have a dynamic sex life. I do. So every little thing that happens with my partner is something that is on my radar for us to work with. And that does not mean I take it to him immediately, nor does it mean he takes it to me immediately. We work with our stuff by ourselves and with our coaches and our counselors, and then we bring it to each other in a way that makes sense, something that builds intimacy and brings us closer together.
That's huge, yeah.
It is. It's really huge, but it doesn't bury it, and it doesn't end with my getting help elsewhere. Because I really need for my partner to be a witness to my process. I just don't always need him to facilitate it.
Yeah. That's really present for me as well, because I have been and am dealing with some anger issues and trying to get those tools on board, in a way that's more constructive. And so that's huge for me. And for you to hear you say anger can be this very productive, very useful tool. I'm going, oh my gosh, I can feel my panic. I'm scared of this. I'm scared of the anger. I don't want it. I don't want to use it. I want to back away from it. But then I can't see what it's telling me. So I'm ignoring that part of that voice. And that's just as scary in a lot of ways, because then I'm missing all of those things that it's trying to tell me. And it's really important.
Less, I have to tell you, what I come up against this routinely.
Yeah.
It's part of my growth path.
Yeah.
And sometimes it hurts so much. Yeah. I don't want to see that. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think about that. I just want to have a good time. I just want to make love. But I know where that road leads.
Yeah, right.
Mediocre sex life. I'm sure it would still be good, and I wouldn't know any better. But I'm at a place now when I make love with my beloved, I have no clue where we're going to go and what's going to happen. And without fail, something brand new and beautiful that I've never experienced in my entire life happens. And I love that. If there's anything I'm addicted to, it would be that. That journey, and it impinges on every other aspect of my life. It's not just a momentary sexual satisfaction. It's an enlargement of me psychically, emotionally, spiritually. And so it's the stuff that the life journey is made from, and that's what I want. So when I feel that horrible gut rot, like, oh no, not another conflict. The first thing I do is I give myself permission to sit with it. It's okay. I don't have to deal with it today, but I also have a commitment never to let it go for very long. So what's very long? I don't know, a few days. I'm going to deal with it with somebody, somehow. And if it seems like that it's an issue that's not going to resolve itself right away, that there's not a good way in with my partner just yet, then I make a commitment to revisit it with myself every few months, to look at it. It's not something I allow to just fade into the distance and forget about. I keep it there in my consciousness. And I also have a spiritual exercise that I do sometimes. We're all kind of a conflation of good and bad, or positive and negative, or appealing and repulsive attributes. Every single one of us has those. When I am my most enamored, my most in love, my most intoxicated with my beloved. A spiritual practice of mine is to bring in a memory and an image of something I found utterly repulsive about him.
Mm.
And allow those things to live together simultaneously. Because I don't ever want to just idolize him and fetishize him. I want to see him as the whole him. And I don't want to go into denial about those things either. So it just becomes this practice for me. Can you feel the same level of adoration and intoxication, knowing that he has these other aspects to him that you might find repulsive? Mm-hmm. And at first, that was hard to do. Now, I'm like, hell yes.
That, again, incredibly profound. Like, my brain is like, wow, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I totally want to try that out and look at that in my relationships. That's amazing. What a great tool. Yeah.
We of course have to start by doing that with ourselves, you know.
Of course. Yeah. Also important. I may have missed that had you not said it. Good one. For sure. It looks like we've frozen again, so hold on.
Then we're not.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We froze briefly.
I saw that.
Yeah, okay.
We need to wrap up here in another 5 minutes or so.
Yep. Okay. I think that's a wonderful timing. I'm ready to wrap up. And like I'll just be going back through and editing this video too as well. So we'll just take all these little bits out. I just want to know if there's anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today about, you know, what we've been talking about.
Well, I really want to give them my free gift.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Please.
And I've got a bit.ly.com link for them. So it's just bitly.com, bit.ly.com. And it actually is that, it's actually bit.ly.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. No. And I'll be putting that in the emails I send out with this video. So okay. that information will all be sent to them. They'll have that handy.
So it's bit.ly/Veronica Stop Fighting.
Stop Fighting.
I'm sorry. Veronica Monet Stop Fighting.
Veronica Monet Stop Fighting. Got it. Okay.
Stop Fighting, yes.
All right.
And it's like a 35-page ebook. And which covers all kinds of things like popular myths about relationships, tips, the 8 steps to anger management. It's packed.
Oh man, I'm gonna download that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just for the 8 steps. That's like I'll start there and then I'll read the rest of it.
Nothing else, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so that's bit.ly/Veronica Monet.
Stop Fighting.
Stop Fighting. And that's all one word, those last 4 words. Great. Awesome. And that will be packaged in with that information that we send out with this video. So cool. Excellent.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for being on with me today, Veronica. It's been a wonderful joy to talk with you.
Thanks, Lessa. Thanks for what you're doing. This is a beautiful conference you're putting on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right. It's wonderful. I will talk with you soon, I hope.
I hope so, too.
All right. Be well.